that is Dr. H.T. Lata Devi. Madam has completed her primary and secondary education at Hassan and secured second rank in both SSLC and PUC examination in Hassan district. And Madam has completed MBBS, MS, and PhD from BLDE BM Patil Medical College from Vijaypur. Presently working as professor and HOD in ENT department, BM Patil Medical College and Hospital and Research Center, Bijapur. And Madam has also actively involved in various activities like treasurer of Vijaypur ENT Association, member of Indian Medical Association, and chaired as the NAC chairperson for Criteria 7 at BLDE University, and guided two research scholars as a PhD awarded under her guidance. And Madam has published many papers in reputed journals, published health articles in various magazines like Taranga and Sudha magazines, given a radio talk in Bijapur Akashwani on health awareness, and received many awards under medical association and medical science. Presently, Madam is carrying a research in collaboration with Vision Group of Science and Technology for the Government of Karnataka. With this brief introduction, I welcome you, ma'am. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Mukund sir, for introducing the guest of today's function. Now, please take over, Lata. Yes, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Please address the gathering.
Good afternoon and namaste. Myself, Dr. H.T. Lata Devi.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you. Now your voice is not that clear as it was earlier.
Now am I audible, sir?
No, ma'am, it's not audible.
Good afternoon. Am I audible, sir?
You are audible, ma'am, but your voice is not that clear.
Voice note. So now am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just 1 second, sir.
Okay.
Hello. Hello.
This line are done, this one. So this surrounding are done. Surrounding they can having what you call as magnetic field. So magnetic field can present on that. So this is a one and this is a one here. So it means that in this
Sir, now how is the voice, sir?
It's clear,
How is the voice?
Loud and clear, madam.
clockwise direction.
You can go through.
Clockwise direction, and this is what you call as anti-clockwise.
Some interruption is there which is going on.
Yeah, I have muted them, ma'am. Yeah, you can please carry on.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Namaste to everybody. It's a great opportunity for me to speak on today's topic, that is causes, symptoms, management and precautions for mucormycosis. At the outset, I want to thank Vice Chancellor of Rani Chennamma University, Professor Bhimappa S. Navi, NSS Program Officer, President Dr. Parashuram Banni Gidar. And also I want to thank Dr. Mukund Mundargi sir and Dr. Fayaz Ahmad Ilkal sir. And the topic which is chosen is the most hottest and ongoing topic still, because the pandemic is still going on. And one of the results of the pandemic was the most disastrous disease which happened because of second wave COVID, that is the black fungus, that is the mucormycosis. First of all, I want to say that mucormycosis is a deadly disease which was seen by us before also. Out of my 15 years experience, I have seen only 2 to 3 cases of black fungus. And it was not because of COVID-19, because it was not there before at all. So now from May 1st, we are seeing a very huge surge of mucormycosis. That was sudden surprise for all of us. Regarding our BLU University, where I work now, it was established in 1986, got the university status by 2008, and our total bed capacity is 1218, and we have dedicated COVID beds 500. And today, already our co-resource person, Dr. Shailaja, has already spoken about post-COVID complications of pandemic. The first thing what I want to say is the mucormycosis itself, because it's the most deadliest, because 80 to 90% of mortality is possible because of mucormycosis. Another complication is the long COVID, which is happening with most of the people who were affected with COVID, wherein the COVID disease is still not cleared even after 1.5 months, where the people has some of the complications like oxygen saturation not coming to normalcy. Some people too get heart attack, and there will be some amount of chest pain or sometimes sudden myocardial infarction and death. And people have lung fibrosis. People are suffering from stroke, Guillain-Barré syndrome, fatigue, depression, joint pain, cough, giddiness, etc. And there is also something which is happening because of Delta variant, that is multi-system inflammatory syndrome. They say that it may be common in children, but still we are yet to see. The most devastating thing is the thromboembolic phenomenon that is happening, wherein people are affected with sudden heart attack, sudden limb gangrene. These things are happening. Sudden stroke is happening. Now, coming to my own topic, that is the mucormycosis, and why everyone is talking about mucormycosis, why there is an exponential raise during post-COVID period. It all began during May 2021. Suddenly, to ENT OPD, many patients started coming every day with complaints of severe eye pain, facial pain, severe headache with history of COVID infection. The whole of the seats of the ENT OPD were filled with people having their hands on the head, and they were suddenly, some of the patients came with sudden visual loss, sometimes one side eye visual loss. We also had a patient with double, both sides visual loss, and that was the most worst thing we could see in our lives. A young patient, 30-year-old, came with sudden visual loss with a history of only one day of severe eye pain, and suddenly next day he had one eye loss. And the sudden vision loss and all those things are happening in young patients of the order of age of about 30 years, about 35 years, something like that. So, and when we got RT-PCR done for all these patients, it was positive, and we came to know that they all had sufferings from COVID, and some people never had COVID at all. They were all asymptomatic. They said that no, 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 we never got the COVID. Then we got the IgG, IgM antibodies for COVID. They were positive. None of the patients are without COVID. So we got the blood sugars tested. It was elevated. Steroids were also taken during the COVID, and these patients were suddenly investigated and given the required treatment. So this happened starting from the May 1st, and these cases from May 1st later increased exponentially. 6 to 8 patients every day with eye pain, severe headache came over, and we got them admitted. We started giving the medical and the surgical treatment every day. Till now, we have already seen 220 cases, and 140 major surgeries are already operated. 80 cases we have to do revision surgeries. Sir, may I know the screen is getting shared properly? The screen is getting shared properly, sir? Okay. So, what is this mucormycosis? What is
Pardon,
this?
ma'am?
The screen is getting shared, no, sir?
Pardon, ma'am? Hello?
The screen is getting shared.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
The screen is shared, no, sir?
Yeah, yeah, it is visible to all, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Please continue.
So, what is this mucormycosis? What is this black fungus we are talking about? First thing is the mucormycosis. First of all, everybody knows that it is a fungus, but it is not a black fungus. It is so called because some of the people are getting discoloration on the facial skin, which is black in color. That may be the reason why this is named as black fungus. but the fungus is not really black. Black fungi are different actually. Let us know about the mucormycosis, what exactly it is. It belongs to a kingdom called fungi, and the class is Zygomycetes, order Mucorales, family is Muceraceae. And this mucormycosis is not one fungi. The species may be of many types: Apsidia, Mucor, Rhizomucor, and Rhizopus. Out of this, the Rhizopus oryzae is the most common fungus which attacks the immunocompromised individuals. So, this is the appearance of the fungi, that is the mucormycosis. This fungi is having the hyphae and the spores. These are the spores which are present ubiquitously. They are present all around us. More properly, we can say in the mud, soil, everywhere. So it is present. It is also sometimes present in humans as an organism which is already present in the nose as a commensal. That means it is present all the time, but it won't attack the person. Then when does it attack the person? When does it attack the person? It attacks when the person is having decreased immunity or becomes immunocompromised because of some reasons. So what I was telling you, how does it come to a human being? First of all, there are many reasons how it can enter into the body. So it is an opportunistic organism. It finds an opportunity. How it finds the opportunity? It is by inhalation. It is by inhalation or ingestion or direct contact. First, we will talk about the commonest route of spread, that is inhaled fungal spores are trapped in the no- nose, that is nasal cavity, and the paranasal sinuses during normal respiration. So once it is inside the paranasal sinus, it goes inside, and what are all the body's defense mechanisms which are present there, like macrophages, neutrophils, try to attack the fungi. But already the patient's already his patient immunity is very much decreased. That too, those patients are usually belong to diabetes mellitus, where the host is immunocompromised. So there will be lot of fungal proliferation. There will be angio invasion. Angio means blood vessels. The blood vessels are attacked directly by the fungus. Once the blood vessel is attacked, the nutrition is suppressed, and the whole of the organ which is attacked goes for death. That is called necrosis in the medical language. So the fungus causes death of the tissue that is invaded by it by the invasion of the blood vessels supplying to that organ. So what happens? Whatever the organ that is invaded will die, will go for necrosis. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಕೊಳೆಯೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So there will be necrosis of facial bones and eye and other organs. So this progress of fungal invasion will cause so much mortality and morbidity. So which I will explain later. Sometimes when the immunity is so much less, the whole fungus disseminates into the all parts of the body, including the brain, limbs, abdomen, etc., lungs, etc. So what I was telling you, the route of entry is through respiration, that is inhalation when we are respiring normally, then ingestion when we are eating some food which is already invaded by the fungi, like the boost attacked some of the food, direct contact. So whenever our skin is traumatized because of some trauma by some injury, the fungus can attack and cause cutaneous, that is skin involvement, that is called cutaneous. Okay, so these are the routes of entry. And what are the types of mucormycosis we know of? There are mainly 5 types of mucormycosis. Rhinocerebral mucormycosis. Rhino means nose, cerebral means brain. So usually where the patient who gets black fungus will be attacked in the nose first and then into the brain. That is why it is called rhinocerebral mucormycosis. Also sometimes it is called rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis. Usually the nose, the eye, and then the brain are attacked. This is called rhinocerebral mucormycosis. The second one is pulmonary mucormycosis. That means the lungs. Directly it goes into the lungs during inhalation and it causes involvement of the lungs. that is called pulmonary mucormycosis. Sometimes I was telling you direct contact with the injured skin in an immunocompromised individual that will cause cutaneous mucormycosis or skin involvement. Sometimes when the patient eats something which is having the fungus, it can involve the gastrointestinal mucormycosis. That means the intestines and the abdominal structures can have the fungus. It is called gastrointestinal mucormycosis. If all the parts of the body are involved in a very severely immunocompromised individual, it can cause disseminated, spread to everywhere, and which has a very high mortality of 90 to 100% death in that patient. So, what are the organs affected in mucormycosis? It is the sinuses. That is, sinuses are nothing but the organs which are present around the nasal cavity in the skull. These are called sinuses. So, then it will involve the eye. Both eyes are involved, or only one eye is involved. The eye socket, it is called orbit. So, that is also involved. Then the maxilla, that is the bone, cheek bone, the teeth, the palate, zygoma, mandible. These are all the facial bones which gets affected with mucormycosis. So once the fungi attacks these bones will go for necrosis and dissolving and death of those bones, which will form debris there. Then the brain is also involved by going into the sinus up above into the brain, it can involve. This can cause stroke and all other complications. I was telling you, skin also can be involved, and intestines and limbs if there is angio invasion or thromboembolic phenomena. So these are the ways how the organs are affected, and different presentations of the plaque fungi are possible. The most common is sinuses. That is why the ENT surgeons are more in contact with mucormycosis patients, as they are the most common organs. Up to 99% they are involved. So whenever a patient with mucormycosis comes to us, usually first thing what we will do is the history. How what exactly happened, how it started, everything comes to history. So first we think of COVID-19. So we ask about whether he got COVID-19 in the recent 2 months. As the mucormycosis occurs starting from during the COVID time itself only up to 2 months of COVID, post-COVID. So the mucormycosis can attack any person who is having COVID at that time. That is called acute COVID and mucormycosis. Or it may occur anytime starting from the COVID up to 3 months. The mucormycosis can happen. So we ask about the COVID-19, patient had got it or not during these 3 months. And then we ask about how the COVID actually happened, whether there was any contact of the patient with the COVID person, whether he attended any social gatherings, whether the patient went for a hospital stay, or he was isolated in the home taking treatment for the COVID. So what I want to say is that it is not only the patients who came to hospital, stayed in the hospital, got the mucormycosis. All COVID patients, whoever who stayed in the hospital, who stayed in the home, who took the treatment, who did not take the treatment, who took oxygen, who did not take oxygen. Nothing is mandatory. Anybody who had COVID-19 had the mucormycosis in our experience. Some young patients who had a vision loss said that he never had COVID symptoms like fever or cough or chest pain or whatever it is. He never had COVID, got tested. He suddenly came to our OPD with one single eye vision loss. Suddenly we admitted him. We got investigated for this one mucormycosis. He was positive actually for COVID-19 also. So what I want to say is that the COVID-19 can be happening there and the patient himself doesn't know about the attack of COVID-19. And we also ask what are the drugs that were taken during this COVID-19 disease. So we are particularly ask for steroid intake. So you all know that one of the gold standard of drugs for COVID is steroid. So unless we give the steroid, the inflammation caused by the COVID-19 virus may not subside. Patient will be dependent on oxygen. Patient may go into cytokine storm. That is why I always give the steroids. So steroids, if not given judiciously, if we don't give steroids properly, the patient may succumb to COVID-19 itself. That is one of the problems. So there is always a problem for the doctors whether to give the steroid properly, whether not to give the steroid properly. So what we say is you have to use the steroids judiciously. So we ask for how much steroid was taken, how many days steroid was taken. So these are all the things, what type of steroid is taken. So these are all the things which we ask the patient. Then we always test him for RT-PCR, Gantalu Dravada Parikshe, and also we test for IgG, IgM antibodies, which give us an indication patient had COVID and we confirm that patient had COVID-19 disease. Then we ask him whether the patient was diabetic from the beginning or it is COVID induced diabetes mellitus. So we always check about the fasting blood sugar level, postprandial blood sugar levels. We also ask whether the patient has controlled diabetes or uncontrolled diabetes. Patient was taking insulin, patient was taking correct anti-diabetic drugs. So all this history we will take. Sometimes we may have to ask whether the patient suffered from cancer, whether the patient was receiving any chemotherapeutic drugs, whether the patient has received any organ transplantation like kidney, when the patient had burns. So all these things we are going to ask just to know whether the patient is immunocompromised. But I want to tell you that all the patients whom we received during this time for treatment of mucormycosis, none of the patients had malignancy, chemotherapeutic drugs, organ transplantation, burns. All patients had only COVID-19 disease, COVID-19 disease, COVID-19 disease. Everybody had coronavirus. So what I want to say is that it was nothing but COVID-19, some mutated virus which has caused this mucormycosis because of severe immunocompromise in those patients. Then, having known that patient had COVID-19, we start asking him about the symptoms, how much severity of the symptoms the patient is having. So patient usually tells severe headache, severe facial pain, eye pain. It may be one side eye or bilateral eye. It may be impairment in the eye movement. Sometimes vision loss may not be there. It is just the starting of vision loss. That is, patient has difficulty in seeing. Perception of light may be there, or it may be double vision, or it may be one side total vision loss, or bilateral vision loss. That is the most worst thing what we have seen. One of the patient had bilateral vision loss. Some 10 to 15 patients had unilateral vision loss. And mind you, those are the people who are only 20 to 30, 35 years of age. That is the most bad thing what we have encountered. So another thing is that these patients can have swelling in the cheeks, eye swelling, lot of eye edema will be there, parotid region, that means the cheek swelling may be there. Patient had temporal area, that is in the forehead swelling, and sometimes numbness in the cheeks. Patient say, I have numbness in this, I am not able to sense what is there on the skin of my cheek. Most of the patients also came with dental pain, loosening of the teeth, severe dental pain. They could not tolerate. They used to come and tell, Doctor, please remove all my teeth. Let the teeth go. That was the way the people suffered, and patient also had gingival ulcers. The teeth were normal, but some gingival ulcers started. After some 3 to 4 days, all the teeth started loosening and they started having severe dental pain. This occurred during the June second week. So there was some temporal differences that happened to us as our experience went on telling us in the initial stage of May last week and the June 1st, most of the people came with eye pain, visual loss, and sudden. It was so sudden. And during the end of the June, patients came with dental pain, loosening of the teeth, gingival ulcers. And I'm very happy to say that June end and the July, we are not having the vision loss patients. That is the only soothing thing what we have. Then other symptoms are ulcer over the palate. Angada antivala over the teeth area, behind the teeth area, there is what is called as palate. That is used to go for discoloration of the palate. They used to say some blackening around the teeth is happening. So this is called discoloration of the palate. These were the most common clinical features. Or what do you say? symptoms that happened during this black fungus infection. So this to show you how are the patients actually. So this is the eye swelling that occurred, and this is the chemosis and proptosis. That is the word of the medical language. Eyes were already lost. The vision was lost. Patient had severe bulging eyes, and whole of the eye was congested, red, and this is already the vision loss. This was also a male about 25 years, and he had these features. This is skin discoloration that can happen. Okay, and this is what I was telling, ulcer over the palate. This is the teeth, loosening of this teeth, pain over this teeth can occur. Apart from that, patient had necrosis or death of this organ, whatever I was explaining you, that is angio invasion of the palate area. So it started with some ulcer over the palate, then it went for discoloration, then it went for total perforation, that means death of that whole organ. So this is palatal discoloration. This is palate necrosis and perforation of the palate that happened. So this is another patient with swelling in the cheeks. So the swelling in the cheeks, swelling in the eye was also the most common presentation before the loss of the eye. So another patient with the swelling in the eye. See the patient's age here. He is so young actually. Patient is around 65. So when we got these type of patients, what we did was immediate hospitalization of the patient, and we started investigating these patients with total blood count, coagulation profile. See what happens in COVID and the mucormycosis. There will be deranged blood profile, coagulation profile. Blood is having more and more clotting of tendency. So there is a tendency to clot, and this clotting will cause many problems like heart. Heart will be having clotting, so the muscle of the heart can die, causing heart attacks. That is called as myocardial infarction. So the blood vessel which is supplying the brain tissue can also go for clotting, causing death of a particular area of the brain. So that can cause stroke, LACVA, paralysis. So all this coagulation profile is deranged. So we go for investigating this. So we always give blood thinning drugs in these patients. That is why we go for investigating the coagulation profile. We also do one of the investigation called C-reactive protein. This is a very good investigation which will show the prognosis, how the patient is improving, how the patient is progressing with the disease. Usually those patients who are having mucor, they will be having raised CRP. Even the COVID patients also, when they are having acute COVID, they will be having severe raised CRP. Once we go on treating them, this CRP will go on decreasing. Then another investigation is ferritin, D-dimer. So these two are the most common investigations which are done even in COVID. Usually, ferritin is the one investigation which is more commonly said to be happening in mucormycosis, because mucormycosis is more common in those patients who have more ferritin in their blood, iron in their blood. So this is also one of the investigation. So D-dimer, as you know already, this is one thing related to coagulation profile. Those people who have more D-dimer has more chances of going for stroke and other heart effects. Okay, so then usually these people are diabetic who are having uncontrolled sugars. So we go for fasting blood sugar, postprandial, that is after the food sugar levels, and HbA1c, which measures the 3 months control of blood sugar level. We also measure another important thing called urine ketone bodies. If ketone bodies are there in diabetes mellitus patients, they are more prone to bad effects of mucormycosis. So all our responsibility is to make the diabetes mellitus under perfect control. So we go for all these investigation. The other things we do is renal function test. We say that even the COVID also can cause some deranged renal function, liver function, and we go for urea and creatinine, which are nothing but the measurements of renal function. So we already have told you, we go for RT-PCR, that is the test for COVID by knowing the swab of the sputum in the posterior pharyngeal wall. We also go for antibodies to COVID, IgG, IgM, and we also test for HIV, HBsAg, that is hepatitis, and HCV are these viruses. And we also want to do ECG and 2D echo for the checking of the cardiac. Okay, so cardiac health. So these are the things which we usually do very frequently and starting, and also again and again we do. So once we do the blood and urine examination, we go for the definitive investigations to confirm mucormycosis. What we do is we do what is called as nasal endoscopy and biopsy. Through the nose, we are going to introduce what is called as the endoscope, and we want to visualize what is happening inside the nasal cavity on the screen of the monitor. So whenever there is an attack of mucormycosis into the nasal cavity, there will be involvement of the nasal mucosa. ಸೊ ಮೂಗಿನ ಅಂಗಾಂಶ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯೂಕರ್ ಫಂಗೈಯಿಂದ ಒಳಪಟ್ಟು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಅಂಗಾಂಶನ ಆ ಒಂದು ಫಂಗೈ ತಿಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕಾಸ್ ನೆಕ್ರೋಸಿಸ್, ಕೊಳ್ತು ಹೋಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಫಿಗರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ seen on the monitor. So this is the way how the mucor affects the nasal mucosa, and afterwards the bone is also affected. Even the bone goes for necrosis and death. So this green thing is the bone where the mucor is affecting the bone, and the bone is also dead in this. So this is a very, very confirmatory mucormycosis finding in the nose, but still we take biopsy from this tissue and send for histopathology. We also send for KOH preparation, that is potassium hydroxide preparation. We send to the microbiology lab, and we also take a bit of tissue from here and send to the pathology lab to confirm the mucormycosis. So what we see, once we send to the lab, what we see, the KOH preparation will tell us the involvement of the fungi. That is, the hyphae and the spores can be readily seen once the potassium hydroxide dissolves all the proteinaceous matter inside the smear and makes the visibility of the hyphae and the spores of the mucormycosis. So this is KOH preparation positive. Sometimes in some individuals, even though the fungi are there, we may not be able to see the fungi. So what we do is that we take the biopsy. The biopsy will also tell us about the fungi and the spores. So here you can see the hyphae, and so nicely we are seeing the specimen tissue. So that is the way how we confirm. Now, sometimes due to our bad luck, we may not get KOH positive, we may not get even the histopathology positive. Sometimes, and all the times almost, we go for what is called as MRI scan. There is a special scan, MRI gadolinium contrast scan. This will be done immediately. Once we think of mucor, we do it. Now it has become almost the gold standard, because sometimes we may not get positive KOH preparation, positive biopsy results. In such a situation, we go for what is called as MRI scans. See the MRI scans here. The scans here are telling very definitely the mucor, the whatever the whitish thing which we are seeing is infected by the mucor here. So this enhancing areas with hypodense areas are all the infected fungi. So here we are seeing what is called as mucor in the maxillary sinus. This is whitish thing. So here you can see very closely, some areas are already black, some areas are white. The blackish areas are already dead. The mucor is affecting and it's already necrosing those areas. Here you are seeing the sinuses, that is on either side of the cheeks. Here you are seeing what is called as the pellet. I was telling you, these are the teeth. The teeth are here, and this area, blackish area, is the necrosed and dying part of the pellet area. This is how we make the diagnosis, by making the MRI scan, see how the death area is happening, how the inflammation, how the ongoing process is happening with the fungi. Now, these are the areas of the brain where we are seeing a frontal sinus, so-called frontal sinus. See, this side sinuses are blackish in color. They are filled with air and they are normal. But this side, there is what is called as the mucor affecting the frontal sinus. You can see here how the mucor is affecting these sinuses. These can anytime invade and go into the brain. Now, These are the other sections wherein the orbit, the eyeball, whatever I'm seeing here, these are the enhanced round globe, what we call the eye, the eyeball. These are the eyeballs. See the mucor, how it is infecting just the organ adjacent to the eyeball, that is called anterior and posterior ethmoid. So once it goes on invading this area, this can also invade this eyeball and cause the vision loss. Already in this case, you can sense from this film that there is bulging of the eyeball. Mucor has already gone into the eyeball, doing lot of inflammation there, and the eyeball is bulging. That is what you are seeing inside those figures which I have shown you in those patients. So these are all the figures of the eyeball getting slowly invaded by the mucormycosis, first going into the ethmoid sinus, then going into the eyeball. Now, this is another MRI scan which is showing the involvement of the sinuses, and also here you can see very closely the eyeballs here. Here, just behind the eye, we are seeing the dead tissue of the orbit. This is called, see, there is difference between this area and this area. So this whole area is dying slowly here, and also here already there is a lot of dead tissue here. So this is how the eye goes on getting invaded. Here there is another interesting scan here, wherein the brain is getting invaded by the mucormycosis. See, this is all normal brain. This is the invaded part of the brain by the fungus. And here already you are having the scan which is having the invaded fungus in the sinuses. So this is how the first the nasal organ is involved, which then going into the brain. Then we also get some of the investigations like CT scan of sinuses, CT scan of the orbit, CT scan of the pellet and the brain, just to know about the invasion, and also the parts of the bone which was getting eroded. So likewise, we also get HRCT chest CT scan. This is for knowing about the status of the COVID in the chest, as well as sometimes there is what is called as pulmonary mucormycosis. Sometimes there is involvement of the lungs with mucormycosis also. So just HRCT will help us to know about the lung pathology. Now, knowing all these things, we have confirmed about the mucormycosis. Now we will have to go for an emergent treatment. What is called as this an mucor is an emergency, medical and surgical emergency. Immediately we have to start what is called as injection amphotericin B. It is the only drug which is effective against mucormycosis. No other drugs which are available in the market, they are all fake. They are giving so many drugs, they are doing lot of lafda in the market, but the only one drug is amphotericin B. The other drug is what is called as posaconazole. These two are the only drugs what we have seen is acting against the black fungus, that is mucormycosis. The drug is injection only. This amphotericin B is the gold standard for the treatment of mucormycosis, which is an elaborating treatment for mucormycosis for more than 2 to 3 weeks. And the injection is so difficult to give in a house setup because the injection has to be given for more than 4 hours per day. And each person, if it is liposomal amphotericin B, requires more than 4 vials, more than 5 vials per day, which will be costing more than 40 to 50,000 per day treatment if it is given properly. There is also another type of injection amphotericin B called as lyophilized, which is different from the liposomal. Liposomal is lipid soluble, lyophilized is crystalline. This is given 1 ampoule per day, but it has bad effects on the kidney and other parts. So, but whatever it is, we have to give either liposomal or lyophilized, and these are to be given for more than 2 to 3 weeks, making the patient hospitalized in the hospital itself, and we have to treat him. So every day the injection amphotericin B will be given, and this always requires many corrections because amphotericin B has many effects on the electrolytes. So we have to correct the correction of sodium, potassium, magnesium and calcium. It also affects many other urea, creatinine, particularly the renal function. So every alternate day we do correction of the renal function whenever we are giving injection amphotericin B. And at the same time, we sometimes may go for retrobulbar injections into the orbit, that is eyeball. Sometimes we give injection directly of the amphotericin B into the behind part of the eyeball. So that is amphotericin B is given to the eye. Then injection posaconazole or tablet posaconazole or syrup posaconazole is also advised as a part of continuation of the treatment of injection amphotericin B after 2 to 3 weeks. Listen to me, the posaconazole tablets and syrups are given only after the treatment of injection amphotericin B is over, and it will be given for 3 months. So we also give sometimes antibiotics when we think of secondary infection by bacteria, and we also give blood thinning drugs, that is called as anticoagulants. During this whole process of 2 to 3 weeks, patient will be with us only, wherein he will be getting ready for the surgery. Surgery sometimes has to be done on the day of the admission whenever there is impending eye loss. So vision loss is there. We think patient has impaired vision. Patient is about to have the invasion of the fungus, and we have to make everything ready, and we have to correct all his blood sugar, electrolytes, ketoacidosis, renal function, and suddenly we have to make him ready within 12 hours of admission. That is one challenging thing for a surgeon. So what we do during the hospital stay is correction of electrolytes, correction of blood sugars, correction of ketoacidosis, correction of renal function, and we also at the same time sometimes we see patients who are still having oxygen dependency. We give oxygen and make him fit for surgery. And we have to correct IHD, that is comorbid disease of heart, comorbid disease of thyroid, etc. And patient may have stroke already because of some other reason, either COVID-induced thromboembolic phenomenon. We have to treat with the help of a neurophysician and a neurosurgeon. These are the these are the challenges mainly because of because of this surgery. We have to make lot of preparation for anesthesia also. So what are all those anesthetic challenges is the difficult airway. Patient already has the palate, that is the mouth problem, already ulcers are there in the palate, and we have to put the tube for respiration. So all those anesthetic challenges are there. Patient has a bleeding coagulation problems, that we have to make it right, and patient has already ongoing amphotericin B, which causes lot of kidney problems and electrolyte balance, that we have to correct. Patient also has a tendency for arrhythmia, hypotension because of this drug induced problems, all this, and patient has to be corrected for glycemia in a very emergent way, otherwise patient will be susceptible for some anesthetic problems. So all these anesthetic challenges are overcome by the anesthetists and also the surgeons in together. So these are the things which we encounter while we are preparing the patient for surgery. Some other problems which are also legal are also possible. See, whenever we are asking the patient to undergo surgery, why the patient has to undergo for surgery? Unless we take out all those blackish necrose tissue from the body, patient will never be all right. First thing is we have to kill the mucor. The mucor has to be killed. So mucor has to be killed with two things. One is surgery, the other one is injection amphotericin. Injection amphotericin is double-edged. It can cause lot of side effects, but still we have to go for amphotericin B. Unless you kill the fungus by taking out the necrosed and affected part of the body by surgery, the injection amphotericin cannot act because it will be having huge overload of fungus. So what the surgeon and the amphotericin B are doing, they are doing it together. First, surgeon has to take out all the necrosed dead part of the tissue which is affected by the fungi, so that amphotericin B can go and kill the small fungi things which are left out. So these are the surgeon's challenges, and that should be done emergently. So emergency, we have to give amphotericin B. Emergency, we have to do the surgery. So apart from this, we have to have a consent of the patient for taking out the eyeball. Think of ourselves, if we are accepting that the eyeball has to be removed, we have to give the consent. That is a very difficult situation for the patient to say, yes, you please remove the eyeball. And for the surgeon, I have to take out the eye. This is the word you have to speak in front of the attender as well as the patient. That's the most challenging thing for the surgeon that happened during this season. So what we asked them, you please give me your eye. You please me give you give your palate, your facial bones. I will take out all the teeth. These were the things we asked for the patient, and all the patients had to consent for the removal of the eye, removal of the palate, removal of the maxilla teeth. And sometimes the attenders did not understand what we are asking. Sometimes the patient did not understand. So we took the consent, we convinced the patient, we counseled the patient, then we took the written consent, we took the video consent also. Then then once the patient is ready, we are to ready for the prolonged 6 to 8 hour surgery, which is such a mutilating surgery where we are removing the eyeball, where we are removing the facial bones. That was not only uh, bad for the patient, but also bad for the surgeon, because it is a psychiatrically uh, burden on the surgeon also. So these are the things that happen. And immediate surgery, we have to take the consent of the anesthetist, ask him to come immediately and give the anesthesia. And we have to encounter the effects of amphotericin B during the surgery. So these were all the things, and we had to speak with the patient regarding the suffering, regarding the death. So what we had to say to the patient was still more worse. We cannot give guarantee for the life of the patient. We cannot give guarantee to the vision of the patient. We cannot give guarantee to the to anything of the patient. So that was the word spoken by us, though we knew that we can make the patient come out of the life. So that is what I wanted to tell with this slide. So what we did was ultimately the anemia correction, the sepsis correction, control of sugar. We stopped the antiplatelets. We stopped the anticoagulants just before surgery, because bleeding will be more if we give blood thinning drugs. So that was again a challenge for us. We had to do the surgery, but we are already giving blood thinning drugs. So we stopped the blood thinning drugs. We started the surgery after getting the consent, written and video consent. The video consent was taken along with all the attenders. Then we went to the OT and started the surgery, and most of the patients were given anesthesia, which was prolonged for more than 6 to 8 hours during a day. And during the time of May, June, and July, May, June, and first week of July, it was almost 6 to 8 hours per day, and 4 to 6 patients underwent surgery in BLDE OT. So intra challenges were encountered by the anesthetists also because of the airway. The surgical treatment, this may not be so much relevant to you people, but we still had to do variety of patients, like which are called as endoscopic sinus surgery, which was done for almost all the patients, all the sinuses. And we did what is called as maxillectomy. We did what is called as orbital decompression, that is removing the eyeball and facilitating the eyeball by removing the disease without removing the eyeball. So two types of orbital decompression, orbital surgeries were done. One is orbital excenteration, means we remove the whole of the eyeball with the help of the ophthalmologist also. And we also did not remove the eyeball but took out the disease from the eyeball without affecting the vision. That was also done. So most of the patients, almost 100 patients, had to undergo orbital decompression, wherein the eyeball was spared and patient had the vision. This is the most good news what we have for all the people, that out of 126 patients who are operated, almost everybody, without 2 or 3 patients only, had to lose the eyeball because already the mucor had eaten away the eyeball. So we had to do some skull base clearance. We had to do taking out some of the facial bones, which are called as maxillectomy, palatectomy, alveolectomy. And sometimes we had to submit the patient to a neurosurgeon for taking out the abscess or pus inside the brain. And these were all the things that were done. So these are some of the pictures of the intraoperative pictures, wherein the fungal debris was inside the nasal cavity, which were all removed by different types of surgeries. And these are some of the mutilating surgeries we had to do, wherein we had to open the whole of the face by taking the incision here and taking out the lips also in the midline and opening the face like a book and take out all the fungus debris inside the face. So these some 15 to 20 patients underwent this type of surgery. And sometimes we had to take out this type of organs. This is nothing but the teeth with the pellet which were taken out. Some in some cases already these were already loose. What we had to do was just to take out with the hands without doing any procedure at all. That means they were already dead. Some patients, some partial involvement was there, so we had to chisel and hammer it and take it out. So various, these are all called partial maxillectomy with pelletectomy and all those things. So sometimes we had to do very bad surgery. That was what I was telling you. This patient with the eyeball vision loss, we have to take out the eye and we have to suture the eye like this. And post-operatively, lot of complications happened. Lots of complications. So this is where we took out the area of the teeth and the pellet. So there was no healing actually because of the mucormycosis. So though healing was partial, there are some perforations which were left, which we will again take for surgery and rehabilitate the patient. This is another patient who already had a renal disease, kidney disease, and he also had to take out the eye. After taking out the eye with a successful surgery for more than 2 weeks, again he came with some swelling in the below the eye. So, but on examination, when the nasal cavity and everything was seen inside the pellet, everything was normal. Only near the eye there was some amount of swelling, which he will be all right after taking out of that some pus inside that swelling. So the successful stories are many. Out of 126, all 100 to 115 patients underwent successfully. They're all living, they're all very happy. But only thing we had to do very emergent psychiatric counseling for them. So some of the patients had recurrence. So after surgery, patient was all right. Patient had good well-being, but sometimes the mucor started growing again inside the eyeball orbit. Sometimes they started growing again inside the brain. Mind you, these are not all the cases which I'm talking about. Only 3 to 4 patients went for brain involvement even after the surgery. Some patients would have been having the involvement before only, then that is also possible. Sometimes the mucor was not able to be removed by the surgery wholly, or it may be the amphotericin which might have not acted because of so much immunocompromise of the patient. So whatever said and done, some patients has recurrence in different sites. It may be in the eyeball, it may be in the nose, it may be in the pellet. So post-operatively, some patients had some involvement. Again, I was telling you, lot of blackish crusts were there. We have to take all these patients once again for revision surgeries. They had nasal block, appetite decrease, nausea, vomiting, and we went for again all the blood investigations, particularly CRP, which tells us okay how much this patient is responding to our treatment. Most of the patients, more than 110 patients, where the CRP was around 160, 180, they came to 20, indicating that patient is so much improving. But only couple of finger patients, they went for some complications like this. So most of the patients who improved, when we took them to operation theater once again to see what is happening inside the nasal cavity, they were having such a healthy mucosa, normal mucosa. So the when you just to know that previous slides you had a very bad looking mucosa. Now those patients we took to operation theater, see the endoscopic picture on the monitor. It was so much healing mucosa, which was a satisfaction for the surgeon. So post-operative clearance we did many times. We asked the patient to come. We suctioned clearance for every 15 days, once a week afterwards. So 3 days once we asked them to come, we asked them to get cleared. So most of the times we had patients up to 3 weeks with us, and after 3 weeks they came weekly once and get their noses and sinuses and everything cleared again in the operation theater. So we had to do again revision surgeries in at least 50% of the patients. All but whenever we did the revision surgeries, whatever the residual fungus that was there, that was taken away, and patients are all right now. 2 or 3 times some patients underwent revision surgeries, particularly because of the recurrence in the orbit, palate, skull base, etc. So we had to take them once again, and we removed the fungal debris which is inside under the cover of injection amphotericin B. So these were all the things that happened, and feeling of well-being is the main thing which tells us how the patient is taken away from the mucar. So the cure is said to be done once a patient is having well-being, eating normally, patient has no pain at all, eye pain, that excruciating headache, eye ache, palatal pain, dental pain should not be there. I am very happy to tell you, after the surgery, more than 90% of the patients were without headache. Though we did a very mutilating surgery, but it was very, very satisfactory because the patient has no suffering. What we want is no suffering for the patient. That is what we wanted. And though patient had some of the eyeballs removed, the pellet was also removed, but patient was not having any suffering. So out of that, 90% were all cured, I can say, at this time of presentation, because mucar is said to be cured only after the follow-up of 3 to 4 months. So now only 2.5 months are getting over after their admission. At present, they are having no suffering at all. 90% said to be cured at this time. So we are going to follow them up still for another 1 month. Then what are the residual patients? Involvement of the pellet happened in the June end, and we had to take out the pellet and the teeth and the alveolus, and we did revision surgeries in them. Only 2 to 3 patients underwent sudden stroke because of thromboembolic phenomena in the brain because of either COVID, which is causing clotting tendency. Those patients had monoplegia, means one hand, there was palsy of one single limb, there was palsy of the right side or left side, hemiplegia, that is called as paralysis, athwa lakwa. So some patients had involvement of the brain, 1 or 2 patients, they were having altered sensorium. So some patients had what is called as facial nerve palsy, where one side of the face was having paralysis, but it improved in 2 to 3 patients, where 3 patients were involved. One patient is having residual palsy. Another patient had 9th and 10th nerve palsy, which is also improving now. Some patients had brain abscess. One of the patient had to succumb. So other patients are improving, but still we are following them. So, so out of so many patients, many patients are cured. Some patients
लता
had
देवी को मैं मिली हूँ, तो
complications.
सबसे ब्रिलियंट स्टूडेंट है आपके उसकी। ये एचओडी है ना अभी तो?
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am, continue. I have muted.
So the only patient which I am not very much satisfied about myself did the surgery so much, involving a very big team. Patient was only 25 years. He had involvement of this eyeball. He was very much all right. Yesterday we lost him. We had to take out his eyeball. So it was around May 20th or 21st, I don't remember. He was all right. He became like this. See the difference in the skin. He was all right. His eyeball was taken away, and he succumbed not to mucormycosis, but because of COVID effect, that is clotting tendency. He had to he was lost yesterday. So he came for psychiatric counseling. He was very well. He was very much upset because of the loss of eye. We were asking him to get an eyeball implant, and he had come for psychiatric counseling with a psychologist. But after counseling was done, after his nose and paranasal sinuses were uh, cleaned in the OT, suddenly he gasped and he was succumbed to some lung problem. This is another successful story where the patient is so happy, and he was like this when he came for mucormycosis. We removed the eyeball, but now he is so happy, he wanders all around Bijapur. But he requires still rehabilitation. The rehabilitation is to be happening only after 1 month, because we say that mucar is fully cured only after 3 to 4 months. Otherwise, if you rehabilitate him now, the tissues may not be fully cured. So, but he is not at all worried. The attitude of the patient is so good. He just wears a black chasma and he wanders all around in Bijapur. So some 8 to 10 patients are like this. only one I lost. So other patients, 100 patients who had minimal amount of fungus, they are all well and they are all healthy. To summarize and conclude, mucormycosis treatment is a very, very big work. It's a team work, and how we manage mucormycosis is a very fascinating story. When in the first week, May first week, we saw so many surge of patients who came into our ENT OPD. Suddenly, what we did was a mucor team, a mucor team, a mucor ward headed by ENT, and we had to have lot of discussion with the management and the authorities, and we made a team of ENT surgeon, anesthesiologist, urologist, physician, orofacial surgeon, neurosurgeon, psychiatrist, nutritionist. All these were included in the team, and we went on treating the patient, and we got the success for the mucormycosis. So the results for which patients we got the results means out of 220 patients, we got only 126 patients for correct follow-up. So 115 patients are doing very fine. They are healthy, they are hale and healthy. And some patients succumbed for the disease. Most of them were because of post-COVID pandemic. And some patients are because of mucormycosis. We lost 6 patients. Percentage of recovery, I'm very happy to say, at the end of 2.5 months, it is approximately 91%. And mortality rate is 10%, which is still to be calculated properly because some patients are lost for follow up. Good surgical outcome is not accident. It requires lot of teamwork. It's always result of meticulous pre-op evaluation, optimization, intelligent planning, and skillful vigilant monitoring. Okay, we heard about the mucormycosis real story. Now, the first thing, the responsibility of all healthcare workers is to make all the people awareness about the precautions to be taken for avoidance of black fungus. Before that, what I want to say is first avoid COVID-19 disease. First avoid COVID-19 disease. But whatever it is, how to avoid black fungus is make the patient wear the mask even after good treatment of mucormycosis. Mask wearing is to be continued. Control of blood sugar is very, very mandatory. Continue anticoagulants as per doctor's advice. Avoid stale food. Take only hot foods, fresh cooked food. Avoid dusty and moisture environment. Use betadine nasal wash every day. And don't go near the water which is remaining outside the premises, which is unclean water. Watch for warning signs, which I'm going to tell you. Wear shoes, long trousers during work, and at least for some days, avoid gardening. Don't go near the vegetative matter. Avoid soil work. Okay, and then centering, masonry work. All those things should not be done by the COVID-19 patients. Warning signs. So those patients who have succumbed for COVID-19, those patients have to see for what is called as warning signs. What are they? So if these COVID-19 patients are having headache, nasal pain, discharge, crusts inside the nose, bloody discharge from the nose, dental pain, loosening of the teeth, facial swelling, eye swelling, impaired eye movements, loss of vision, palatal ulcer, loosening of the teeth, and necrosis and death of some tissue. These are the warning signs. They have to come and immediately they have to get the ENT doctors or eye doctors or any doctor as such advise very, very immediately. That's a warning sign. So what we could do in this mucormycosis period was how we could get the success was these patients had come in the initial stage. Those patients who already had the involvement of the brain, who already had the involvement of the orbit, we could not save the eyeball, we could not save the patient sometimes. So the only thing is that initial stage and immediate starting of the treatment is the key. So how do we prevent COVID-19 disease? How do we prevent mucormycosis? only one thing: take vaccine, take vaccine, take vaccine, take vaccine, take vaccine, take vaccine, take vaccine. This is the only way which already Shailaja Madam has also told you and made you understand what is the importance of the vaccine. And the last two slides, again the same thing what I want to tell you. Wash your hands again and again, use a sanitizer. The first thing and the foremost thing and the best thing is the wear a mask. Wear a mask. The mask should be proper. It is not just a cloth. The mask should be either N95 mask or a three-layered mask, surgical mask. These are the only two masks which will help you to prevent coronavirus. And the guidelines of the government, they are keep your distance, social distancing. All these are very, very important. Then only we can make the coronavirus go away. So I want to acknowledge at this session Department of ENT, staff, postgraduates, Mrs. Hema, SPC, Sri BM Patil Medical College and BLD University, Vijaypura. I want to thank my Vice Chancellor, Principal and the Registrar for this, giving me opportunity to talk with this topic. And I want to say thanks to all the organizers once again, and I'm open for all the questions. And if there are any surgeries which I have shown you, if somebody has been hurt, because this was the only way I thought that I can make the public made aware of all the surgeries that had to be done, because these are the new things that is happening, and the people should be aware that what can happen. Such a devastating disease can happen because of negligence. That is what I wanted to convey today. I am opening for discussion, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It was a very interesting and thought-provoking session, ma'am.
Yeah.
Uh,
There are many questions that are possible.
yeah, if anyone wants to ask
Last time also.
questions, you can. You're most welcome.
Full screen.
So anyone wants to know about, yeah, just a minute, ma'am. There is one,
Yeah.
Dr. Reshma Banu, she has one question for you, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
She says that her young, healthy nephew of 25 years old passed away due to mycomycosis on May 1st.
Yeah.
He recovered
Yeah.
from COVID but became serious for 2 days, losing
Yeah.
both eyes, and on third day succumbed to the mucormycosis. Though he was given injections, does it spread so quickly within such a short span of time?
Yeah. This I wanted to make our people know about it, sir. That was I was telling in between my slides only. So whatever the patients we got during the May first week and the second week, they were what is called as a sort of acute mucor fulminant. It was fulminant mucor. Not give time to us at all to do something. They suddenly came with visual loss, or they, when they were hospitalized, within one day they went for visual loss. And they were hospitalized, second day they went for intracranial extension, that is brain involvement. They did not, the disease itself was so bad and so much spreading, it did not give us time to act at all. Such a devastating, acute, it is a sudden, fulminant sudden spread of mucor happened. We have also encountered some of the patients who went on telling that doctor did not do anything, because 3 days the patient was hospitalized, fourth day patient was not there. Such a situation we have also encountered, and most worst part is the patients were all young, healthy, very good individuals, like they were very this thing strong looking healthy individuals. This happened, and we still have to know what happened, why such a thing happened. Was the virus which was attacking them during that time, that is the COVID-19, was it having a mutated virus which caused so much immunosuppression that the mucor could attack and cause a disseminated mucormycosis which took the patient's life so fast? This is all I can say now. Dr. Reshma, are you satisfied? You want to discuss anything?
No, ma'am, I'm satisfied.
Yeah. Some 3 to 4 patients, Reshma, we had
Yes.
the same situation and we were just helpless. We went on seeing them. We could not do anything. We were also feeling very sorry for ourselves, our helplessness.
Yeah. Our nephew was very healthy, ma'am. He was so
I know,
healthy,
I
25
know,
years old, very
I
young,
know.
and yeah, very fit.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
very shocking thing
yeah,
for us.
I know.
Mm.
Any questions? Any questions, please? Only thing what I want to say once again is that the patient is already so much in a pitiful condition where the patient has undergone COVID-19 disease and is on the verge of getting healthy from the COVID-19, recovering from the COVID-19, suddenly gets a headache and suddenly is seen by a doctor. The doctor says you get immediately hospitalized. Already the patient has spent more than 1 to 1.5 lakhs, and mucormycosis is such a costly disease, and the patient has to undergo so much debilitating sufferings and removal of so many organs. So this is one thing what is called as in Kannada ಬಾಣಲೆಯಿಂದ ಬೆಂಕಿಗೆ. So that means already patient is in a vessel which is very much heated and suddenly falls into a fire. So that happened. This is what I call in English and Kannada ಬಾಂಡ್ಲೆಯಿಂದ ಬೆಂಕಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಎನಿಬಡಿ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್?
ಮೇಡಮ್,
ಯಾ, ನಮಸ್ತೆ, ಹೇಳಿ.
ನಮ್ಮ ಮಮ್ಮಿಗೆ, ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ದಾನಮಾರಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
ಹಾ, ಹೇಳಿಮ್ಮ.
ನಮ್ಮ ಮಮ್ಮಿಗೆ ಸಡನ್ 4 days ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ಆಗಿ ತೀರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರಿ, ಸ್ಯಾಚುರೇಷನ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗಿ. ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ರಿ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಅವರು COVID-19 ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಇಂದ ಸಫರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು. ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ರು ಪೇಷಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೊಂದ್ ತರ. ಹೇಳಿ.
She was fully normal. Sudden she got a saturation level down. Then she did not get hospitalized. For that she have been
ಆಕ್ಸಿಜನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರಮ್ಮ? ಆಕ್ಸಿಜನ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರಾ? ಹಲೋ.
After 24 hours she got oxygen.
ಯಾ, ಅದೇ ಇದು ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ದ ಕೋವಿಡ್ ನ್ಯೂಮೋನಿಯಾ ಮೈಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ವರ್ಸನ್ಡ್ because of patient's immunity or patient not having oxygenation of the lungs. Suddenly she might have worsened. So whatever it is, it may be cytokine storm anta ansutte nange. So we cannot say how the COVID has acted on different people in different presentations. Some people have very mild disease, some people have fulminant disease. The same thing, mucor is also acting. Any questions from anybody?
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, one more question.
Yeah, ಹೇಳಿಮ್ಮ.
What is the rate of CRP to get hospitalized?
In COVID or what exactly? So CRP
In
is
COVID,
not the criteria to get hospitalized or not hospitalized actually. So we should not see the CRP at all. See, CRP is one factor which we see only for the progression of the disease. So sometimes CRP may be more and patient may be healthy also. But it also indirectly indicates us that things may be like this, things may not be like this. So you should not consider CRP as the only factor.
Okay. They say no, ma'am, if it is beyond 7%, so it is, you likely may have COVID infection. Is it like that?
Illa. Sometimes 7 may be there in the initial stages. After 3 to 4 days, it may increase to 60, 70 like that. So we cannot say to whom it goes increasing, to whom it may go decreasing. So we will see not only the CRP, we see the signs, symptoms, we see the other factors like HRCT, we see how the patient is getting recovery. We see all those factors and then consider.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am, I have one doubt, ma'am.
Yeah,
Just a
please.
clarification.
Yeah.
Just on 8th of July, I had first dose of Covaxin, ma'am. And then
Yeah.
later on, I came to know that your hospital is providing Sputnik.
Yeah.
So should I go for the second shot of Covaxin and then go for Sputnik, or can I have it at the
Sir,
later stage?
true to tell you, we were also thinking like that actually, but that is not possible actually. We thought that the Sputnik can be available only in December. Till that time, we are already in danger. So, for the common public, so the government started giving already Covishield and Covaxin, and for the doctors, they gave us in January and February only. So we thought that Sputnik will come in December. So everybody they started vaccinating, but suddenly we had the Sputnik because of Dr. MB Patil who could get the Sputnik so
Obviously.
fast. So those people who were in between the age of 18 to 45 who did not get, they only can get Sputnik. But already those who have received Covaxin, they already have some antibodies already going on. And we don't know what is the way how our body is responding to each type of this one vaccine. See, sometimes they say that some vaccines are having different type of antibodies, and Sputnik will start from in different type of antibodies. Nobody knows what is happening in the body after giving what type of vaccine, what is happening. So it is better that we go on acting safely, so we cannot get Sputnik vaccine. So Covaxin has given some type of antibodies to you, and in that context, you are taking Sputnik means we don't know how is the uh, things, the processes that are happening inside the body. Better to go for the Covaxin only as per ICMR.
But
So after
recently, ma'am, my colleague, somewhere in the month of March, if I'm not wrong, she took the first dose, and
yeah,
then simultaneously after one month or so, she took the second one, and then recently she took the third dose as a booster.
hello,
Hello, ma'am.
yeah,
Yeah, and she also took the third dose as a booster.
yeah,
So the first two doses were Covishield, and then later she took Covaxin.
Covaxin.
Yes, ma'am.
That may
So
not
there's
be
lots of
that may not be
dichotomy.
proper. Sir, actually, true to tell you, even the doctors and the researchers may not be knowing many things at this juncture of time. So the time will only tell us what is happening. We still have to have a lot of experience regarding all these things.
So it depends on trial and error kind of a thing.
Yeah, of course. So most of the patients who got two vaccines also correctly, they got COVID. But only thing Sutaning was the COVID was most of the times mild to moderate. It was not life thing which is correct from our side. So, and some of the patients who got the second vaccine within the third or fourth day, they started getting very severe COVID. So, what we say in such a context was, how was this possible? So, that was one thing which we could not answer. So, what would be happening is that they have not yet started with the antibodies which are effective. So, it takes some time to develop the antibodies effectively. So during that time, they should be very careful when the vaccine is taken. So during that time, they should have good mask and they should wander around with all precautions. That is one thing I wanted to tell. So after taking the vaccine, 14 to 15 days, persons may be having less immunity. So during that time, they should be very careful.
So now most of them are having single mask and double mask. Will this masking will help us, ma'am?
Yeah. So because we are the real examples of masking, because we have to wear the mask for our own life. This thing. So when we are having mask very properly in the calculated way, like we always calculate. No, I'm going to the ward. I have to have face shield along with the mask. So when we go to the OT, we go with all the PPE kit and we will be taking lot of precautions. So if we are doing calculated type of risk, let us say we are having a social gathering, let us say some 50 people are there in a marriage, that time I propose my public to have double mask which are really N95 with a surgical mask over the N95. Such a calculated risk has to be taken. Another situation is there when you are supposed to go for prayer in a temple or a mosque, so you have to again have a good masking because so many people are there, the viruses will be clogging in the atmosphere. So such calculated risks are to be taken when you are in the home actually, And if you are really having a home where the people are not going anywhere, then you can be without the mask. All these things are necessary. We have to think over and over when to use the mask, when not to use the mask, how 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 much type of masking is to be necessary. All these things have to be thought of, even till we say that Delta variant has gone away.
Okay, last one question, ma'am. Maybe it
Yeah.
may be even controversial also, but I just wanted to ensure the safety of our students. Means
Yeah.
now the government is planning to open up the degree colleges as well as a
Yes.
KCET exam, and then PG exams are on the cards.
Yeah.
So even after taking first dose, are they safe enough to come in and take up the examination?
Actually, what has happened is that now the really what I can say from my
Because even government must be taking some experts' views also into consideration before taking
what
any
I want to
decision.
say regarding is that first of all they are all youngsters. First of all, they are youngsters and they already have some good immunity and they are already boosted with one dose of vaccine. So one thing. And now in the community level, what I can say is that the amount of virus load is less at this moment of time. I'm telling you, at this moment of time, when the colleges are getting opened, there is less viral load in the whole society. So that time they are opening the colleges. But what will happen next, I don't know. So what I'm asking them is to take lot of
Yeah, because some of
precautions.
the religious gatherings are being stalled.
Hmm.
So
I
because it
think the
should not become,
precautions.
yeah,
No. The
corona
precautions has
carriers.
to be taken.
Mm.
Precaution has to be
Yeah,
taken.
obviously with, because it
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
concerned with our PG students and UG students they
Yeah,
are
yeah,
attending.
yeah.
So that's why I
Precautions are to
wanted
be
to
taken.
just address this issue, ma'am. Yeah, thank you for patiently answering our questions, ma'am. And then I take this opportunity to thank to thank you on behalf of our Vice Chancellor, sir, our Director, and this is Program Coordinator, teaching and non-teaching staff, and on my personal behalf, I thank you, ma'am.
I thank all the organizers and you for giving me
Thank
the
you so much,
opportunity
ma'am.
to talk about this, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you.
And I also thank the
Thank you, sir.
participants for being associated with us for the yesterday as well as today. And also I
Yeah.
take this opportunity to thank Nidhi Katti also, who has taken the initiative of roping in both the resource persons for this online webinar. And a note to all the participants that the feedback link will be shared in the WhatsApp group shortly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And stay
Thank you.
safe. Good day. Bye-bye.
Okay, sir.
Bye, ma'am. Take care.